Welcome everyone, and I am so excited today to be talking with Dale Troy, and I know that this is going to be a treat for so many of you to be able to glean from her all the wisdom she has around our kids going to college and preparing them and setting them up for success. And most of us that's kids have decided to choose that path of going to college. Worry, are they ready? And today, students on college campuses feel more stressed than in the past, which means we as parents are even more concerned. Students are reporting higher levels of anxiety and depression every year. And the dropout rate for freshmen is 30%. So this is a real problem, and the reason that I wanted to have Dale on our show today. So Dale Troy is a mom to 3 daughters. She is a former lawyer and former headhunter for lawyers, and she's also a graduate of Yale College and Yale Law School. So talk about stress. We can learn a lot from her today. And following her passion for healthy living, Dale became a health coach 6 years ago. And she believes that students do not have to suffer from unmanaged stress or feel overwhelmed. She teaches students how to successfully transition to college so they have control over their college life and can create a positive experience. Dale is also the mastermind of the college success formula that she created to help college students improve their ability to handle college and thrive in the college environment. And also, Dale's mission is to empower college students by teaching them to implement habits that will reduce their daily stress and allow them to get the most out of their college experience. So welcome, Dale. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Well, I really appreciate you inviting me. I've always wanted to talk to you, so I'm really happy.
Yeah, I'm so glad. And we really need this. I mean, this is something I'm talking to moms all the time. They're very anxious about this. So we're really going to dig in and be able to give our listeners some steps and hear your wisdom on how can we help during this stressful time when our kids are getting ready and preparing to go to college. And I want to start out because I want you to share with our listeners, you have a very interesting background and how you actually got started with working with college students.
That's a good question. I kind of see it as the natural progression from where I started to where I'm at. Really starting from my own college experience, which was very stressful for me because I came from a very small town and I was, like number 3 in my class, and, grades were like the most important thing to me. And I go to Yale and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I can get A's here. This is so stressful. Everybody's so much smarter than me. How am I going to do this? So because of that, I really actually learned how to be goal-oriented and resilient and just focus on myself and not worry about what everybody else was doing. And as it turned out, here's what happened really. The first semester, I got 3 A's and 2 B's. And immediately I realized I actually could do this. Let's not worry about everybody else. And I ended up graduating summa cum laude and went to Yale Law School. So, it's all in how you think and what you expect of yourself. But I was stressed out. I had migraines, stomach aches, all sorts of things. And I wish I had known what I know now about how to not feel so stressed and still get good grades. And that's what I'm hoping for the students that I work with. So anyway, I became a lawyer. I wanted to help people. Being a lawyer was really more about documents than helping people. So then I became a headhunter for lawyers, where I really was coaching lawyers on how to get jobs. And I loved that. I did that for 10 years. Then I had my kids and I wanted to be at home. So I became a health coach because I really cared about health. And during that time, being a health coach, my kids were starting to go to college. They all went to Yale. They all suffered from anxiety and stress and, you know, how am I going to do this, and how do I really belong here, and am I good enough? And I saw what they were going through, and not just them, I saw their friends. I mean, there were kids with eating disorders. There were kids who were taking a semester off. There were kids who were like almost failing out. It's just a very stressful experience. And it's much more so than when we were in school, because you have social media, you have so much more going on in the world. They're much more connected and really comparing themselves with everyone. And then I think the other aspect is we are raising our kids differently. We're raising our kids much more, where we're much more involved in their lives than how I was raised. And because of that, it's much harder for them to transition from home to college.
Yeah.
So when I started seeing what was going on, and I realized that my health coach background and my own experience really made me feel like this doesn't need to be the case. There are skills, there are ways of handling this transition that the kids just don't know about. They're not prepared for, and parents aren't doing anything about it. I think parents feel like they look at college as it's just a natural next step. Everybody does it, and it's not a big deal, and my kid will figure it out. But a lot of kids aren't figuring it out, or at least not quickly enough. And they're dropping out, or they're, you know, having mental health issues, or, you know, those kinds of things. So I decided what was missing, and I was trying to figure out how could I help. So that's why I decided to create my own program and figure out, you know, what are the essential skills that students need that will change what's happening on college campuses. So that's why I created my college success formula program.
This is an epidemic with our kids being stressed out and depression and going away to college and not being prepared. And I have seen that with my own kids, especially with one of them that wasn't as well prepared and did end up coming home and hitting the restart button and then went back. So it looks different for each of us and each of our kids, what that looks like. But being able to you're helping kids to lay that foundation to set themselves up for success, that it really doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
And I want you to touch on, we are parenting differently now. We are much more involved. And as a result of that, I think when our kids are going away, they're not as prepared. So can you tell us, what should we stop doing? What are some of those pitfalls as parents that we can fall into that does not empower and prepare our kids?
Okay. Yes, definitely. So the first thing I would say is we need to give our kids more responsibility. We need to stop waking them up, you know, let them set their own alarm. We need to stop reminding them about their homework. We have to stop reminding them when their next activity is, and you need to get ready for it. You know, that you need to give them more control. That would be like a big step forward, I believe.
And when do you start that? Because you tell parents even in middle school, like, how can we begin that process? Because some moms will say, well, when do I do that? They're sophomores in high school, and I'm still waking them up in the morning.
Well, yes, I don't think that should be the case, but I would say do one thing at a time. You know, so pick waking up in the morning and say, you know, I think you're old enough to wake yourself up. Let's try this out. You start setting your alarm. I'll be a backup in an emergency, but I'm not going to go into your room. And you know, do one thing at a time. Try that for a few weeks. Make them, and maybe make it almost like a game, and give them some kind of reward for doing it. But you can't do everything at once. Obviously, you know, you gotta kind of baby steps.
I find that's really helpful for moms. We want to like eat the elephant all at once rather than little bite sizes. We can't change everything. And And then that overwhelms our kids too, and overwhelms us. So I like that. Do one thing at a time. Is there anything else that you can think of that are some mistakes we make?
Sure. I guess in the sense of being resilient, I think it's really important to make sure your kids know it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. Like, don't make grades the most important thing. Make learning the most important thing. If they say they try out for a group and they don't get it, don't make like such a big deal about it. So you try something else. Don't make it's okay not to be good at everything. And you have to be like a little more flexible in your attitude, because when they get to college, they're going to try out for a singing group or a dance group and they're not going to get in. And you don't want that to be like the worst thing and they're ready to transfer to another school, which is what one of my daughters wanted to do. So, you can't make it like life or death situation. You have to make them realize that some things work out, some things don't. You just move on, you try something else. And, everything can't be such a big deal.
Yeah. Do you use that growth mindset when you're working with students?
Yes, I do. Growth mindset. Yeah.
And I tell our listeners a little bit about that, because I love the growth mindset.
It basically means that you don't assume that if you fail at one thing, that is going to be the end of the story, that you can continue to go forward and try something else, that there's always a new path, a new option, a new door that opens, that, everything, basically it's an optimistic attitude. Yeah. And looking to the future rather than looking in the past.
Yeah. I love it. It's like, if they try something new, good for them. If they don't make it, they did go out for they took that risk.
Right.
And they went for it and they didn't make it, but they're stepping out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. And you learn from everything that you try. You learn something from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Not being so attached to the outcome of it.
Yeah. Actually, as an example, one of my daughters at Yale, wanted to be a tour guide from freshman year. She tried out freshman year. She tried out sophomore year. No. She didn't give up. She got it her junior year, and she had a great experience. But most kids would probably say, "Oh, I didn't get it once. They don't want me. Forget it." But she kept working at it, getting better, practicing, and she eventually got what she wanted.
Good for her. She had that resiliency, that grit that our kids need to develop.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, because I know resiliency is a big one, tell us about what we can begin to do today to teach them what those skills are. And I think you have 4 main ones. Is that correct? Or are there 6? 4?
Well, 5 or 6. Depends on how you count them. The skills that I like to lay down for kids to help them feel like they can do college confidently. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one is setting goals, so that they walk onto campus having some vision in mind of what the year is supposed to be, so they have some direction. And when you have a goal, like my daughter did, to be a tour guide, that pushes you forward, that gives you something to look forward to. And when you don't get it right away, you still have that goal, and it can motivate you to do better. You can also do that in terms of, grades. Mm-hmm. For instance, I worked with a student who wanted to be a pre-med, and in his first semester, he was doing very poorly, and his mom said, "I don't know, this isn't going to happen because he's not doing well already." And I started working with him on all sorts of different things and got his grades up, and then he got back on the pre-med track. But he might not have been motivated to get his grades up if he hadn't had that goal in mind. So that gave him incentive to do other things, to get more organized, to get more sleep, and all these other things that were preventing him from getting good grades. Yeah. So having goals is really important, and that's not something that we really talk about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, to be intentional, to think about, yeah, what do I want, rather than how I went to college and didn't think through I didn't even think to ask, what are my goals here? So freshman year, I did very poorly. I was eating poorly. I was out partying and having a lot of fun, but I didn't really think about and I hear you talk quite a bit about this. What do I want my future to look like? Who do I want to be? And then to, aspire to reaching those goals versus just showing up on campus mindlessly, not,
Yes.
thinking. And so to get them to think about what might they want, that's one of the things that you really help your students that you work with to do.
Yes, exactly.
Which
Yeah.
I think is hard as parents when you have teenagers, if they're used to us nagging and reminding and trying to get them to do their homework. When we do talk to them about goals, they might push back on that, which is where you come in, which can be so helpful because you're that third party voice that can really help them, where we can't maybe help them in the same way, that you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same way, that if you're working with a child if you're working with a parent as a parent coach, you know something that they don't, and you can, help them pass on that information to their child. But in my case, I'm kind of taking away that tension between the parent and the child.
There's the word, tension.
Yeah.
So that's number one. So setting some goals. What would you say number two?
Number two is time management, and learning how to prioritize your time, how to schedule your time, how to, make sure everything gets done and you stay organized. And that is actually, in my mind, that's the key to doing well in college in terms of grades, because it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you can't do that, you are not going to do well. And I think that's where freshmen really fall down, and they get overwhelmed because they're totally disorganized. They don't turn in things, they lose things, they're just not on top of their schedule.
Yeah, or don't even know how to study.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Or they don't.
Yeah.
Or they don't schedule enough time to study. They don't realize that they're supposed to spend 2 hours studying for every hour they're in class. So I help them. I have two things that I work with, two tools that I use. One is a priority sheet, and it's must do, should do, and can do. And they have to keep like a running list, and all the must do's obviously are what they need to focus on, and cross them off as they do them before they move on to the others. Because it's easy. Oftentimes people will do the thing they think is the most fun or the easiest. And then they don't get the things done that are like actually due the next day. So that's one tool that I use. And then I really believe in an actual planner, a physical planner, where you can see what your week looks like and make notes all over it. And so I really believe in that.
Yeah, that visual.
Yeah.
I feel like that really helps me. The phone doesn't do it for me. I have to have a visual to help me with that. So I'm thinking, gosh, could I have used you? Because you're teaching not only to set up for success, but you're teaching lifelong skills.
Yeah, exactly.
That if we don't learn it, it's, having those systems in place, that even as an adult, I wasn't good with systems, and I've had to learn it. I've had to learn it with my business. And so having somebody like you to, help students learn how to do that, it's a real gift. So
yes.
Yeah. So what's number three?
Number three is a little different. Number three has to do with feeling comfortable on campus, because you're leaving your home, and you want to make your campus feel at home. So I call it creating your own support network, or finding your people is another way I call it, another shorthand for it. So I want them to not only make connections with peers, find friends, but I also want them to feel comfortable in the dorm with the residential assistant or whoever's living in the dorm, meet their professors, go to office hours, get to know them so they can even be mentors for you, or, you know, help you with whatever decisions you have to make that are academic, or even sometimes you become personally connected with those people. Their advisor, their academic advisor, also the health center. I really like to emphasize that, especially now that they know that the health center exists, how they can use it, what's required, where it is. I mean, you don't want to be looking for it in an emergency. So basically just feeling like this is my place and these are my connections. And in terms of the peers, a lot of that happens in the dorm, but it can also happen through joining activities, which I highly encourage. And I really like to emphasize that people aren't going to come to you. You know, there are a lot of people out there on the college campus. You have to make the effort. You have to be your most outgoing self. You have to be friendly and outgoing, and find the groups and activities that interest you, where you're going to find connections that matter to you. But you have to make the effort.
Yeah.
Because
It's be very scary to step out and try and meet other people. Do you find that something that is hard for most kids to do?
I think there are, quite a number that tend to feel lonely freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're not stepping out, and especially if they have a single and they really feel secluded. So in many respects, having a roommate is at least a first step, because you have to communicate with somebody else. But I think loneliness is a big issue for freshmen, or just feeling uncomfortable on the campus. And if you can do that, if you can get rid of that problem fast, you're going to be in better shape.
Yeah, no, for sure. Most definitely. It brings me to the little side question. I want to ask it so I don't forget it.
Yeah.
When are kids, because I experience this working with parents and also as a mom, when your kid calls home and they're lonely or they're complaining about something, do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement for parents on how to handle that?
Okay.
I'm throwing you a curveball.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, I guess I know what I do with my kids, and it's not always perfect. So what I would say is, first, be empathetic. And say, yeah, I understand. I know this is hard. It's a new experience. But remember, everybody else is in the same situation, and they probably all want to meet people. So maybe you have to be more outgoing. Go next door and meet some other kids in your dorm. Don't be afraid to do that, because everybody really wants to connect. And also, ask them if they've joined any activities. Are they participating in whatever events have been available to them? So make sure that they're actually involved in whatever is available. I don't know if that helps at all.
Giving that encouragement.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, it's almost like I just wanted to open it up and discuss it, because I find that is a challenge, especially with texting, because kids will just text and anxious text to kind of vent. But then as moms, we take that on, and then we're anxious, like, oh my gosh, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're not making any friends. And we kind of catastrophize about it and worry about it, versus like what you said, just going, yeah, I bet that's hard, like validating it. That can feel so counterintuitive because we want to fix it. I liked how you said that, it takes time. I mean, they are trying to get used to things. It can be a lonely time. They can feel homesick. So just to really just try and be there to listen and manage your own anxiety, versus jumping in there, which we want to do and fix, but encouraging them to reach out and get some support. But I know it's hard as a mom when your kid first leaves and you're getting those phone calls, struggling, and and you want to jump in the car if they live close. Not that that's always a bad thing, but if we're doing it every weekend, or it's just having to kind of let them wrestle with that whole learning process.
Yeah. One thing I have found though, and my husband keeps reminding me, is oftentimes my daughters will text me some horrible thing and I get nervous. But if I don't respond right away, if I, they may just figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
And then, like an hour later, they're not even talking about that. It was just like, it was a momentary thing. And they use me, as you said, to vent.
Yeah.
That's what they use me
we're
for.
left holding.
Yeah.
What do I do with this?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is also a good thing. Don't be there to immediately answer. Let them try to figure it out themselves, and it may just blow over, and then you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hold your breath either.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad I asked that, because it just popped into my head that's not always easy. So what's our third one?
Oh, yeah, that was the third, the campus.
Okay, fourth.
Okay, so the fourth is taking care of yourself. All the healthy lifestyle things that are going to just make your body and your mind function well and make you feel happier. So I talk about 4 different things. One is healthy eating, then it's exercise, sleep, getting enough sleep and good sleep, and drinking water. So I go over all 4 of those. And, some kids are pretty good with it, maybe because that's how they've grown up, but a lot of them aren't. And they've never even thought about how much sleep they're getting, or I actually have to make choices when I go to the dining hall, because at home it's the food just put in front of them. So it's something new too for a lot of kids to think about, actually, what am I putting in my body, and is that going to help me have energy and focus and feel good, or is that going to just kind of slow me down and not give me any kind of nourishment? So I talk about the fact that what you eat is going to really affect your performance in every aspect of college.
You're really helping kids to become more self-aware.
Yeah.
Of how to care for themselves. But as you said, not even thinking about how sleep is impacting them. Yeah. Again, it's like mom nagging, go to bed, but you're able to be there and say, you'll perform better if you get those hours of sleep that you need. How many hours does the average college student need?
8 to 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And most don't get that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then, then what happens, they miss a class because they can't get up in the morning. And then then they're worried about that. So everything kind of fits together. If you have all the pieces working well, then you're just going to be a better student. You're going to have a better experience. So I go back, in terms of like the sleep, I'll go back to their schedule, their planner, and figure out what time do you actually need to go to bed, and then how are you going to get everything done so you can go to bed at that time. Don't go to bed at 2 and get up at 7. You're never going to do well on your test the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's number 5?
And number 5 is kind of a big one. It's how to deal with stress. And I have.
Okay, tell us all.
Yeah.
We all need more of that.
Yeah. So I actually have 12 different tools. Some of them are mindset, like the growth mindset is one, and mindfulness, things like that. And then the other are more physical or action oriented, like having a gratitude journal, using deep breathing or meditation, walking in nature, listening to music. I mean, there's a whole range of them. And my goal is for every student to have at least one that they love to do, that they know, like, if I'm feeling stressed, I'm just going to go take a walk in the park, and I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to feel good, or whatever it is. So I want them to they don't have to do the 12 things that I said, but they have to find something, at least one, hopefully 2 things that they'll do on a regular basis. I also love the gratitude journal, because I think that it's so simple to do. And if it becomes a habit, it just puts you in a much more positive frame of mind.
It sure does.
Yeah.
It's so, what's the word? Like, it's use so often. Oh, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And I'm like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
but every time I do it, every time I write down what I'm grateful for, it
Mhm.
does shift. It is so powerful.
Yeah. And it's more powerful if you're doing it every day at the same
Yeah,
time. And
yeah,
it's just like part of your routine.
yes.
It takes such a short amount of time. I actually had one student who said, well, I like the idea, but I don't know when I can do it. It's just impossible. So we talked about her whole bedtime routine, and I came up with this idea, which she liked, which is she took her gratitude journal into the bathroom down the hall. And like while she was brushing her teeth or doing whatever at the sink, she would just write down 3 things. So she just got it done at the same time she was doing something else. And
Yeah.
that worked out really well.
Yeah, I've heard habits.
Yeah.
Habits, you have to attach it with something. You
Yes.
want to get that in the habit of doing it. So, yeah, brushing your teeth and writing it down, if that works, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that does really help shift. So, I was reading something recently about a gratitude journal that families can do, or a gratitude jar. I thought
Yes.
that's a neat idea.
Yeah. Well, your families who are at home now, that is one thing that they can start working on.
Yeah.
You can do that, and then everybody puts something in, and then you can read them like at dinner or whenever you're together. I love that idea.
I do, especially now. We need
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
Well, fall can be such a, well, was there, before I transition, was there another one? Because I know you have
No,
this.
the sixth one that I had in that is actually the growth mindset piece.
Okay.
We already talked about that. Yeah.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
you're going to give a freebie away.
Yes.
Everybody, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, it's kind of a more detailed version of what I've talked about. And
Okay.
it's the 6 secrets to a successful first year in college. And it talks about all the things, but you'll have it written down and you can refer to it. And it's just a good little resource.
I love that. Okay, and I will be including that in the notes to this. So that's
Okay.
wonderful. Well, fall, I have to ask you, fall is such a stressful time for parents. Usually, I mean, some kids start their junior year, some start their senior year. And I hear this over and over and over again. I have 2 questions. The first question being, what do you do when your kid is not really doing their applications? And that is a toughie. Moms want to get in there, the kid's resistant. And then my second question is going to be, how do you know if your kid is really ready for college? Because some moms, they've decided this kid's not quite ready. We're going to do a gap year. We're going to go to junior college. So those are the 2 questions that I want to ask you. But tell us, what should we do if our kid's not filling out their applications? We're feeling stressed. Do you have any words of wisdom to how
Well,
to
I guess there's different options. One option is to hire someone to help them. That's often the best option if you can invest in that, because it takes it off your plate.
Yeah.
So I hate to say that, but I think that's why there are
doing that. That was a huge help.
Yeah. I mean, that's why there's so many college consultants out there, because parents have realized that that's the easy thing to do. We did do that with our three daughters, but we were still somewhat involved. I mean, we would read their essays and give them comments and things like that. But yes. And then you also need to, sometimes I wonder if if a kid is really objecting to it, that maybe they're not ready.
Yeah.
And they can't even deal with the whole thing. So you really need to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Like, why are you not doing these applications? Is there, we need to talk about this, because they're going to be due and you're not going to get into school if you don't have them done. And, see what you can find out. I mean, that could just be their way of dealing with not wanting to go to college. But it's better for them to do the application and defer. It's easier to get in that way. I think if you don't apply and try to do it later, I think you're going to have a harder time getting in.
Yeah. If you do it later.
Yeah.
A lot of big decisions, and getting that support, whatever that looks like, for your kids, for parents through this process, because it's a lot. And as you said in the very beginning, there's a lot more involved today than there was even with when I was applying for college. Feels very, very overwhelming today and stressful for our kids.
Yeah, I mean, and like I applied to 5 schools when I went, and kids are applying to 15. It's so different because it's so much more competitive, so much harder to get in. You don't really know. It's kind of a gamble. You just don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, it's much more difficult.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, my youngest applied to a stretch school, and it was a private school, and she didn't know if she'd be able to get in. She got in. I just liked what they saw in her extracurricular, and so it was. So you don't know.
You don't know. You really don't.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but as you said, it's not uncommon for kids not to want to do them. I mean, it's daunting. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me to think about that. So it's understandable. But, the more kind of organized you can be in systems, and if that takes getting somebody from the outside to help you, then it's probably worth it.
Yeah. Well, if it's something that specializes, or it can even be like some sort of a tutor. I know.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah.
Anything to kind of handhold.
Right.
Especially if you're a parent that, like we were, we were not so, that was not our strong suit. So it was so helpful to have somebody else helping our kids with that.
Yeah. And the school counselors, they have too many students to get into details with anybody. They could have 100 kids or however many.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't rely on that.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the perfect time to work with you? Is it better as your kids are going into college? Do you mostly work with kids that are already in college?
I work with both. I've even worked with, my youngest was a junior because she was so stressed out about the whole college process that her mother felt like it was going to affect her grades and everything. So I worked with her, and I really loved that. That was great. Just got her doing things that she'd never done, like the deep breathing and the gratitude journal. I mean, it made such a big difference. Affirmations is another thing we worked with.
Oh, well,
yeah. So it could be as early as junior. In my mind, the ideal is after they've been accepted to college and they're starting to, get prepared, and then that summer before, so that they're, have the last piece. Make sure we have these skills in place and how to use them. But I work with lots of kids who are already in college and having one issue or another, and I love doing that as well. So
wonderful. Gosh, well, you are a gift. We need you badly because our kids need it. And I love that not only are you supporting students to be successful in college, you're giving them these life skills that we all need to really thrive socially, emotionally, mentally, to set them up for success in ways that I really truly believe it's hard for parents to be able to do that. Well, thank you, Dale. So tell everybody where to find you.
Sure. Probably the easiest is my website, which is crushcollegestress.com. And and my email is the same, daletroy@crushcollegestress.com.
Okay. crushcollegestress.com.
Yes.
And then you have a community.
I do for parents.
That are going through this to support each other through this whole process, which is so good because you have, not only do they have you, but then they also have this community to bounce ideas off of and get support from other parents, and that really helps a ton. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's called, you can find it on Facebook. It's called College Parent Support Community. Exactly what it is.
College Parent Support Community.
Yeah.
That's great. You got that name. They can be taken.
I know. I got that one. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Dale.
Thank you. I really enjoyed speaking to you.